Most people think astronauts are selected because they are the smartest humans alive. Perfect memories, superhuman focus, brains running on a different operating system than yours. Wrong. NASA selects astronauts specifically because they are average, technically excellent, but psychologically ordinary. The same anxiety, the same cognitive limits, the same forgetting curve. The difference? They get put through a memory and performance system so ruthlessly engineered that forgetting becomes structurally impossible. And that system works on anyone. I reverse engineered the entire thing. By the end of this video, you will never approach memory, focus, or cognitive performance the same way again. Chapter 1. The Premortem. Here is the single biggest reason you forget everything you learn. You learn it once, passively, and assume it is stored. It is not. It is floating, unanchored, scheduled for deletion within 48 hours. Astronauts cannot afford that. A forgotten procedure 250 miles above the Earth is not an inconvenience. It is a death sentence. So NASA built something called scenario-based encoding. Here's how it works. Before astronauts ever touch a real system, they run failure simulations. Not success rehearsals. Failure rehearsals. They are told, the oxygen system just failed. You have 90 seconds. Go. They fail. They get it wrong. They panic. They recover. Then they run it again. And again. And again. Each failure leaves a scar in the memory architecture. Not a metaphorical scar. A literal, neurological one. When your brain processes a high-stakes failure, it floods the hippocampus with norepinephrine, the same chemical released during genuine emergencies. That chemical tags the experience as critical. Do not delete this. This one matters. Cognitive neuroscientist James McGaugh at UC Irvine spent 40 years studying this exact mechanism. Emotional arousal during encoding increases long-term retention by up to 300%. The stress is not the enemy of learning. The stress is the encoding mechanism. Schools removed stress from learning to make it comfortable. They accidentally removed the biological glue that makes information stick. Average students study in calm rooms with soft music and no pressure. Then they walk into a high-stakes exam and their brain cannot retrieve anything because it encoded the material under completely different conditions. NASA does the opposite. They encode under pressure, so retrieval under pressure is automatic. Your version of this is simple but uncomfortable. When you learn something important, immediately put yourself under artificial pressure. Close the material. Set a timer for 60 seconds. Write down everything you just learned. Do not check. Do not review. Retrieve under pressure. Your heart rate will go up slightly. Good. That small stress response is norepinephrine tagging the material as important. You just activated the same mechanism NASA uses to prepare humans for space. But pressure encoding is only the first layer. Here's the problem. Even strongly encoded memories decay if they are never retrieved. That is where Chapter 2 comes in. Chapter 2. The Pre-Sleep Protocol. NASA figured something out that most people throw away every single night. The 90 minutes before sleep are the most valuable learning window in your entire day. Not the morning. Not the afternoon. The pre-sleep window. Here is the neuroscience. During the transition from wakefulness to sleep, your brain enters a state of theta wave dominance. 4 to 8 Hz. That hazy half-conscious zone where your thoughts drift and images appear without effort. In this state, the filtering mechanisms of your prefrontal cortex go offline. Your brain becomes unusually receptive. Information encountered in this window gets routed directly into hippocampal consolidation with almost no resistance. MIT neuroscientist Matthew Wilson proved this in a series of landmark studies. During sleep, the hippocampus replays the day's experiences in compressed form. Patterns rehearsed just before sleep get replayed more frequently and consolidated more deeply than patterns encountered earlier in the day. Astronauts use this window deliberately. 30 minutes before sleep, they do a structured review. Not a full study session. A soft, low-effort pass through the day's most critical material. No testing. No pressure. Just quiet review. They are seeding the overnight consolidation process, planting the material so the sleeping brain knows what to rehearse. Then they sleep in cold rooms. Between 60 and 65 degrees Fahrenheit. Your core body temperature must drop to initiate slow-wave deep sleep, which is when hippocampal replay is most active. NASA crew quarters on the International Space Station are kept cool deliberately. This is not a comfort preference. It is a cognitive performance requirement. You are probably sleeping in a 70-degree room. Your deep sleep cycles are shorter than they should be. Your consolidation is running at 60% capacity. 1 degree of temperature adjustment costs you nothing. The memory gains are immediate. No screens for 90 minutes before this review window. Blue light from screens suppresses melatonin production by 50% and delays sleep onset by up to an hour. That 1 hour of lost sleep costs you approximately 20% of the consolidation efficiency for everything you learned that day. You are literally paying for Netflix with your cognitive performance. The astronaut pre-sleep protocol takes 30 minutes. Cold room. No screens. Soft review of the day's critical material. Sleep. Your brain runs the consolidation overnight on autopilot. You wake up having learned things you did not consciously drill. That is not discipline. That is architecture. But there is still a gap. Even perfectly consolidated memories become inaccessible under real pressure if you never trained retrieval under pressure. Chapter 3 fixes that. Chapter 3. The simulation gap. Here is the most expensive mistake intelligent people make. They practice the knowledge. They never practice the retrieval. Those are two completely different skills running on two completely different neural systems. Knowing something and being able to access it under pressure are not the same thing. Astronauts know this better than anyone. Every single procedure they learn gets practiced in the simulator before it gets executed in real life. Not reviewed. Simulated. The simulator is not a study tool. It is a retrieval training environment. It creates the emotional and cognitive conditions of real execution so that when real execution comes, the retrieval pathway is already paved. Psychologist Endel Tulving called this the encoding specificity principle in 1983. Memory retrieval is most efficient when the conditions at retrieval match the conditions at encoding. You encoded your material in a quiet library. You need to retrieve it in a loud boardroom. The retrieval fails, not because you did not learn it, because you learned it in the wrong context. NASA eliminates this gap by making the simulation as close to reality as possible. The astronaut does not just know what to do when the pressure alarm fires. They have felt the alarm, felt the time pressure, felt the uncertainty, and retrieved the correct procedure anyway. Dozens of times. In simulation. So when it happens in orbit, the retrieval is automatic. Your simulation does not require NASA hardware. It requires deliberate context matching. If you are learning a sales pitch, practice it standing up while someone stares at you blankly, not sitting at your desk in silence. If you are learning a coding language, practice writing it on a whiteboard from memory, not with autocomplete and Stack Overflow open. If you are preparing for a presentation, practice it with a timer running and fake consequences attached. Tell yourself you only get one attempt. The elevated stakes create mild stress. The mild stress releases norepinephrine. The norepinephrine tags the retrieval pathway as critical. The next time you need it under real pressure, the pathway fires automatically. This is not a productivity hack. This is basic neuroscience that every elite performance domain figured out independently. Military, medicine, aerospace, athletics. They all converged on the same answer. Simulate the retrieval conditions. Close the simulation gap. Hit subscribe before your brain schedules this for deletion. We close gaps here. Chapter 4. The bandwidth problem. Here is what nobody tells you about how astronauts actually think during critical operations. They do not think harder. They think less. Deliberately. Strategically. Radically less. During a complex docking procedure, an astronaut is not running through a mental checklist in real time. They are not calculating. They are not deliberating. They are executing pre-built automatic patterns while keeping their conscious attention reserved for anomalies only. This is called cognitive bandwidth management, and it is the single biggest separator between elite performers and everyone else. Your working memory can hold approximately 7 items simultaneously. George Miller proved this in 1956, and nothing since has overturned it. 7 items. That is the entire computational budget of your conscious attention. Average performers spend that budget on basic execution, remembering the steps, tracking the sequence, managing the familiar. Elite performers have automated the familiar completely, freeing the entire 7-item budget for genuine novel problems. Astronauts automate everything automatable. Emergency procedures are drilled until they require zero conscious attention. Instrument readings are pattern recognized rather than consciously processed. Communication protocols become reflexive. By the time a genuine crisis arrives, their working memory is completely empty and ready. They have 7 full slots available for the actual emergency. You have 0 because you are spending them all on tasks that should have been automated months ago. The solution is deliberate automation practice. Identify the 5 to 10 core skills in your domain that you execute regularly, not the creative or strategic ones. The mechanical, procedural, repeatable ones. Drill those specifically to the point of automaticity. Practice them under distraction. Practice them while holding a conversation. Practice them while tired. You are not trying to get better at the skill. You are trying to remove the skill from your conscious processing budget entirely. Every skill you automate frees up cognitive bandwidth for the things that actually require thinking. This is why experts make hard things look easy. They are not exerting less effort. They freed up more bandwidth. But bandwidth management alone is not enough if your attention keeps fracturing before automation can take hold. That is the final problem, and it is the one most people never solve. Chapter 5. The Focus Architecture. Astronauts live and work in an environment specifically engineered to prevent attentional fragmentation. Not because they have better willpower. Because willpower is a depletable resource and NASA engineers know better than to rely on it. The International Space Station has strict communication windows. Astronauts are not reachable at all times. Messages arrive in batches. There are no push notifications, no social media, no ambient news feed. This is not an accident of technology. It is a deliberate design choice based on decades of human factors research. NASA knows what the University of California confirmed in their landmark interruption study. After a single interruption, it takes 23 minutes to fully rebuild focused cognitive state. If you are interrupted every 3 minutes, you never actually focus. Not once, not even briefly. Your entire cognitive day is spent in the shallow mental state that exists between interruptions. Never deep enough to build real patterns. Never deep enough to consolidate real memory. Never deep enough to do real thinking. Astronauts in orbit average 4 to 6 hours of uninterrupted deep work per day. That is not because space is quiet. It is because their communication architecture makes interruption structurally impossible during work windows. Your attention architecture is the opposite of this. Your phone is a slot machine that you check 96 times per day on average according to Asurian research. Each check is an interruption. Each interruption resets your focus clock. Each reset costs 23 minutes of recovery time. You are not distracted because you lack discipline. You are distracted because you built a focus destruction machine and put it in your pocket and gave it your complete attention every 9 minutes. The fix is architectural, not motivational. Motivation will not save you. Restructuring your environment will. Batch your communications. Check messages at 10 a.m., 1 p.m., and 5 p.m. Not constantly. 3 windows. Everything else is a work block with notifications fully disabled. Not silenced. Disabled. Silenced notifications still create visual alerts. Visual alerts still trigger attentional orienting responses. Your brain still registers them and spends resources deciding to ignore them. Disabled means invisible. Your brain never registers the interruption. No cost. Work blocks of 90 minutes minimum. This matches your ultradian rhythm, the natural 90-minute cycle of high-focus cognitive performance that sleep researcher Nathaniel Kleitman identified. Shorter blocks prevent you from ever reaching deep focus. Longer blocks exhaust the focus state and produce diminishing returns. 90 minutes. Hard stop. Short break. 90 minutes again. This is the astronaut workday structure. It is also the structure of every high-performance knowledge worker who has studied their own cognitive output seriously. The physics does not care about your preference for constant availability. Your brain works in 90-minute cycles whether you design for it or not. Design for it. One more layer. Your physical environment. Astronauts work at dedicated stations, not floating around the module doing 3 things at once. A dedicated station signals task engagement to your brain through environmental anchoring. The brain builds context associations between physical location and cognitive state. If you work from your couch, your brain associates that location with relaxation and passive consumption. Trying to do deep cognitive work from your couch is fighting your own environmental architecture. Designate one physical location exclusively for deep work. Only deep work. Nothing else. No casual browsing. No social media. No entertainment. Over weeks, your brain will begin associating that location with deep focus state. Arriving at that location will begin triggering the focus state automatically. This is Pavlovian conditioning applied to your own attention system. You are not relying on willpower. You are building a trigger. Every time you violate the exclusivity rule, every time you browse social media at your deep work station, you weaken the trigger. Every time you honor it, you strengthen it. Astronauts do not bring their personal tablets into the mission control simulation area. That is not a rule. It is a cultural norm built around the understanding that environmental contamination destroys the focus state they spent years building. Build the norm. Protect the station. Here is the problem, though. You now have the full NASA protocol. Pressure encoding. Pre-sleep consolidation. Simulation-matched retrieval. Bandwidth automation. Focus architecture. 5 layers. Completely backed by research. Completely actionable. And most people will finish reading this, think, that was interesting, and do absolutely nothing different tomorrow. Not because they are lazy, because changing learning behavior requires one more thing that none of the above addresses. You need to understand exactly why your current habits feel productive even when they are destroying your cognitive performance. That is the illusion that keeps average learners average for decades. That is why I made this video breaking down the fluency illusion, the psychological trap that makes you feel like you are learning while your brain is quietly deleting everything. Watch it next.